Hello everyone, and welcome to my review of The Witcher's Silver Sword Plus. This is the Rarity 8 Sword and Shield that we got with the Witcher collaboration. Of course, you have the previous version of it where you unlocked it by fighting the regular Leshen, and then you get the Plus version of it by fighting the Ancient Leshen, and he gives you the parts necessary to upgrade the weapon. You get a boost to your damage and you unlock the augmentation. So this is very important to do if you want to use the weapon at its fullest capacity. Now, whenever we get a new weapon, we always want to know how strong is it, how does it compare to the old weapon meta, does it replace anything, is this going to be my new best option? I've decided to place the Witcher's Silver Sword Plus into the S tier. That's because I believe by the smallest margin ever, it does replace the Deviljho Sword and Shield as the new best dragon damage sword and shield in the game. It's not the best for raw damage, I did test that, but for dragon damage, it clearly beats out the Kiar Sword and Shield, so does the Deviljho Sword and Shield. But then when you compare the Deviljho and the Witcher Silver Sword, they come very close. The primary thing that I think is keeping them apart is mainly that the Witcher Silver Sword has white sharpness and a huge bar, and I expect if you were in a long fight against a monster, I suspect that an optimized Deviljho Sword and Shield build will have to stop and sharpen maybe once, maybe twice, it depends on how long the fight is. With the Witcher Silver Sword, it's conceivable that you would never have to sharpen. So if we're talking about sustained damage, which is often what speedrunners are interested in, I think you're going to get higher damage out of the Witcher Silver Sword. Other than that, if you're talking about just damage in bursts, they pretty much tie. The Deviljho Sword and Shield and the Witcher Silver Sword, they pretty much tie in terms of damage. It's just that difference in the white sharpness that I think is separating them. They both have white sharpness, but Witcher Silver Sword has a large white sharpness bar that is going to allow you to maintain that reliably through the entire fight. I've chosen to compare the Witcher's Silver Sword Plus to the Baroth Club 3. Let's go ahead and take a look at the different weapon attributes and kind of make sense of what's going on here. So my claim is that the Baroth Club 3 is actually stronger than the Witcher's Silver Sword, and we're going to be able to see that when we compare damage in an actual, right, we're going to show it off on the training poll. But let's go ahead and take a look at the attributes. 266 attack on the Witcher's Silver Sword Plus, 294 attack on the Baroth Club 3. That's a pretty big difference. In fact, that's 4 plus 4 plus 30. That is 30. That is 38 in terms of difference in the attack value. It's pretty high, actually. It's hard to make up for that difference. However, if you notice, Baroth Club never gets the white sharpness bar, so it's missing out on the white sharpness multiplier. I was told a long time ago, maybe somebody can verify this in the comment sections, I was told that white sharpness does a better job at dealing part break damage, so that's also something to be considering here. Baroth Club, if it's stuck with blue sharpness and that matters for part break, that might matter for a few monsters, especially if you're farming for parts or something. The affinity is a difference of negative 10%. However, that's going to be cleared out with the difference in the augmentation. So Witcher's Silver Sword gets 1 augmentation, Baroth Club gets 3, right? We love the Rarity 6 weapons for those triple augmentations. You're going to be putting a affinity augmentation right in there to fix the affinity. You're also going to be adding an attack augmentation, which is going to even further increase the difference between Baroth Club and Silver Sword, right? We already said it was 38, well, the attack augmentation is going to take it even higher. Notice also, so you're getting the dragon element on Witcher's Silver Sword. Let's assume you're fighting a monster who is immune to dragon damage. There isn't actually a lot of monsters that have that situation. Odo-Garen is a case, right? Odo-Garen, you're not going to deal any dragon damage to him. In this case, Baroth Club doesn't care about that because Baroth Club only deals raw damage. But notice this, it has a hidden element, which means that you're going to add Elementless, and this is going to even further change the difference in the attack values between the two weapons. Finally, notice that the Baroth Club comes with a medium decoration slot, which means they have the same build efficiency, because when you're talking about adding the Elementless decoration, that means you're going to have to give up a medium decoration slot, but Baroth Club is coming with an extra decoration slot, right, an extra medium decoration slot, so that's taken care of. So it turns out, because the attack value between these two weapons is so large, it doesn't really matter that Baroth Club 3 only has blue sharpness, and as you can see, I'm getting more damage out of the shield bash with Baroth Club 3. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I think is the best raw damage Witcher's Silversword Plus build. And then I'm going to show that same build for the Baroth Club 3 as well. Notice this is actually very similar, unsurprisingly. And yeah, essentially you would want to use Baroth Club 3 for raw damage, but if for some reason you were really determined to use the Witcher's Silversword Plus for raw damage, you could do that as well. Now the reason the Witcher's Silversword Plus is scoring so well in the tier rating is because we care about having the best dragon elemental damage build, and that's because we have monsters who have 3-star weaknesses, and even monsters that have 2-star weaknesses to dragon damage, and we want to have these options. That would be, for example, the Behemoth, that would be Deviljho himself, right? Deviljho, Rathalos, Azure Rathalos, Raytheon, Pink Raytheon. There's probably more that I'm not thinking of. Let me know if there... I know that with the Ancient Leshen, that's a 2-star weakness, and I think Senejiva is a 2-star weakness as well. What I found is when I optimized builds between the Witcher's Silversword and the Fatal Bite, and then I went out and I actually tested the damage on these monsters, the damage difference between them was negligible. It was very, very small. It was either there was the exact same damage, or it was a damage difference of like 2 per hit, which it sounds like a lot, but there's one major difference between them. I mentioned it earlier. Witcher's Silversword Plus is coming in with a very large built-in white sharpness bar. Fatal Bite, in order to accomplish its optimized build, has to run with one handicraft decoration, and then it gets the smallest possible white sharpness bar, right? And the problem is you're going to run into, inevitably, you're going to run into this situation where weakness exploit doesn't proc because you hit the monster on a non-weak spot, and then you're going to lose some of that white sharpness, and you're going to have to resharpen at some point. So let's go ahead and compare the attributes between these two weapons. The attack value, again, is 266 on the Witcher's Silversword, 308 on the Fatal Bite. That's once again a pretty large difference. In fact, that's a difference of 42. Really, really large this time. However, there is also kind of a more of an affinity difference here. So with Witcher's Silversword, we have an affinity value of 0%, which is fine. Fatal Bite has negative 20%. So the double augmentations you see down there, one of them is going to be spent bringing the affinity up to negative 10%. And then what ends up happening is Witcher's Silversword still has the advantage by 10%. And then next you see that the dragon damage is going to be 330 on the Witcher's Silversword and 210 on the Fatal Bite. So this time, because we're really talking about elemental damage here, the dragon damage does matter. With the Witcher's Silversword, we're going to have, well, I tested out 2 builds against the Fatal Bite actually. I tested out the raw damage build that you saw earlier, and then I also tested out a crit element build as well. It was really the critical element build that was tying with Fatal Bite. And it's interesting because with Fatal Bite, because of its larger attack value, its best build is a raw damage build. And then it's just like, yes, the dragon damage is tacked on and it's nice, but the fact that Witcher's Silversword can go for crit element and it actually matters here, it's really how they're competing. So once again, my conclusion is that they essentially tie, right? They do. However, because of the large white sharpness bar on Witcher's Silversword, I do believe in the length of a large fight, even with a very skilled player, you will have to end up sharpening Fatal Bite, and that very small difference between them is the reason that Witcher's Silversword belongs in the S tier, because that would make it the best dragon damage option in the game. I did test the QR weapon. The QR weapon's not as good as either of these. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to be doing is showing you my damage testing between all 3 builds. And finally, I'm going to be showing off the builds that I used to test these. You can argue if there was a more optimal build between them. I think these are pretty much optimized builds. Let me know. Alright, and that's nearly everything I have to say. There's one more thing I want to mention. I don't think that Witcher's Silversword is a good option on the Geralt set, right? We have the full armor set, the Geralt set. I wanted to do, once again, another defensive build like I did with the, I just did it, the Zerial dual blades. If you wanted to see that video, I'll leave a link in the description, or you can click up here. I did exactly the same thing over there. I evaluated the weapon. Well, because the Geralt set has Marathon Runner, I think it is a terrific defensive option for dual blade builds, but the Marathon Runner doesn't really benefit sword and shields very much. So ironically, I wouldn't if I wanted to have a defensive build on the Witcher's Silversword, I would just use any regular, set with protection and with health boost, but not necessarily recovery speed, not necessarily super recovery, which isn't necessary, and especially not with Marathon Runner, which doesn't really affect Sword and Shield at all. So I did test that, and unfortunately it just wasn't that good. Alright, and that's everything I had to say. Let me know if I missed anything. I'm going to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.